As the visionary leader of Hope City, my primary responsibility is to define reality and then point us to God's preferred future for our church. And our reality has changed quite a bit over the last 18 months. With COVID, it's changed significantly. And so if you're newer to Hope City, let me give you a little kind of a brief history of our church. We're 5 years old, and in January of 2020, we moved into this facility from a building that we rented on Main Street, and we packed this place out the first couple of weeks that we were here. We didn't have the blinds on the windows if you were around back then, and so people were squinting during. It was like people were getting a suntan while they were worshiping. It was like the second coming of Christ inside this room. It was so bright. And so we ran out of seats the first few weeks, and people were sitting on the floor, people were sitting up against the wall in the back on both services. And so we ordered 100 more chairs, and we added those, and then 6 weeks after we got the chairs, we shut down for COVID. And we spent the next, from March of 2020 until October of 2020, we didn't have any in-person services. And so we spent the next few months just talking to the camera, and you guys were online. And if I'm being quite honest with you, when we moved into this facility, I think myself and a few people on our leadership team, and I think a few people on Hope Church's leadership team, had this vision that eventually our two churches, they are in the gymnasium today, and we rent this space from them, and we rent the lobby and we rent the kids space. I think we had this vision that eventually our two churches would merge, and this would become our long-term permanent home. But over the last 10 months, it's been evident that that's not the direction that God is leading us. And so at our service, one of our outdoor services earlier in the summer, I kind of announced to you that we were beginning the process of looking for a long-term permanent home. And I want to encourage you to be praying. Tomorrow we're looking at 3 facilities. And so I'm hoping that one of those facilities leads to the next step in our journey. But I think if I'm just kind of sharing my heart with you, I think there was a part of me, the optimistic part of me, that thought we would just flip a switch and we would return to pre-COVID life. You know what I'm talking about? Like we would return to pre-COVID life in school. We would return to pre-COVID life at athletic events. We would return to pre-COVID life at the airport. And we would return to pre-COVID life in church. But if you look around, there's plenty of seats. People aren't sitting on the floor. And so it became obvious that we needed to do something to address the reality that we're in. And we want to create critical mass. We want to create critical community. We want to be able to feel like there's a buzz in the room and in the lobby. And we want to create the best hour of your week. And more importantly, or not more importantly, but as important, the best hour of your kids' week in Hope City Kids. And so starting next Sunday, we're going to move to one service at 10 a.m. And so you get to sleep in just 30 minutes earlier, or 30 minutes later, and the 11 o'clock will come down 1 hour earlier. When it's fall back in a few weeks, I'll convince the 11 o'clock it's really the 10 o'clock. I'll kind of manipulate them to thinking that they're getting as much sleep as they typically would. And we really hope that between now and Easter, we're going to build momentum back and allow us to experience God's presence as a community here in this room, in the lobby, and that your kids will have an incredible Hope City Kids experience. And so that's our heart behind it. And I'm really excited just to be able to see everyone at one service and to feel like, man, we're a part of something that God is doing. We really feel like God has some great things in store for us in 2022, and we want to be ready for those things as a community as He begins to unveil those in the next few months. And so if you call Hope City your church home, here's a few things that you can do to help us in this transition. First, you can just pray. Pray that God would give us discernment as we look for the long-term home for Hope City. And secondly, you can serve in Hope City Kids once a month. We're asking for more volunteers to accommodate, the going to one service so people don't have to leave or miss worship. We're also going to be creating a volunteer service that will be at 8:30 a.m. for anyone that's serving to come. It won't be a public service, but you'll be able to actually serve and attend during that time. So you can serve in Hope City Kids once a month. And finally, invite friends to join you in person for our 10 a.m. service. And we just really feel like God's going to allow us to help this place feel more like Hope City as guests come and to experience what God is doing here. And so that's our heart behind that, all right? So pray, serve, and then invite. That would be awesome, all right? Let me pray, and then we'll dive in the message.